The hidden truth. Does prostate surgery really make men impotent? You've probably heard the old saying, every man who gets prostate surgery becomes impotent. It's a fear that haunts men everywhere, generation after generation. But is that really true? What if I told you about Mr. Pedro, a 65-year-old man who was terrified of this very thing and has a surprising story to share at the end? Today, we're going to break down this myth that holds so many men back from taking control of their health. We'll talk about real fear, real courage, and the decisions that can change lives. Mr. Pedro went through all of this and is here to show us what really happens when you face your fears head-on. The fear that paralyzes. Mr. Pedro's story. Picture this. You've been waking up multiple times every night, barely getting any sleep because your bladder just won't cooperate. That was Mr. Pedro's life. He was constantly getting up in the middle of the night to pee, struggling with what's called benign prostatic hyperplasia, BPH. It's a condition that affects millions of men worldwide. But the fear of losing his sexual function kept him from seeking help. How many men, just like Mr. Pedro, live in this silent fear? Believing that prostate surgery means the end of their sex life? That their bodies will betray them in a way they can never come back from? Understanding the prostate. A small gland with big responsibilities. To understand the full picture, let's take a closer look at the prostate. It's a small gland, but it has a big role, both in the urinary system and in reproduction. The prostate helps produce seminal fluid, which is part of the semen. But its location, right next to the nerves responsible for erections, is what creates so much fear. Those nerves are delicate, and since they surround the prostate, many think, if something happens to those, it's all over. But is that really the case? The truth about prostate surgery and erections. The reality is, in most cases, BPH surgeries don't interfere with these nerves. Contrary to popular belief, surgeries like the transurethral resection of the prostate, TURP, happen inside the prostate and usually don't affect the outer areas where the nerves responsible for erections are located. The fear that grips so many men is mostly based on misinformation. That's not to say there aren't side effects. One of the most common is retrograde ejaculation, where semen flows backward into the bladder instead of out during orgasm. It happens more often after some types of prostate surgeries, but here's the thing. It doesn't cause erectile dysfunction. Mr. Pedro, for instance, had TURP and is here to share how it all turned out for him. Benign prostatic hyperplasia, the real silent enemy. Before we dive into Mr. Pedro's outcome, let's talk about what was really causing him so much distress. BPH is a condition where the prostate enlarges, squeezing the urethra and making it hard to urinate. The symptoms might seem mild at first, peeing more frequently, waking up at night, but over time, it can completely ruin your quality of life. Imagine constantly feeling like your bladder isn't empty, or worse, not being able to pee at all, potentially needing a catheter just to relieve yourself. No one should have to live like that. Modern treatments, safer than you think. What Mr. Pedro didn't know, and maybe a lot of you don't either, is that there are several treatment options for BPH. Each comes with its own risks and benefits. TURP is one of the oldest and most reliable, but there are newer options too, like green laser surgery, or minimally invasive procedures like Urolift and Rhizome, which use water vapor to shrink the prostate. These treatments have come a long way in reducing side effects, especially when it comes to erectile dysfunction and retrograde ejaculation. The risks are much lower than the fear would have you believe. And best of all, many of these options allow men to return to their normal lives without feeling like they've lost a part of themselves. Mr. Pedro's journey of courage. So, what about Mr. Pedro? After months of suffering and fear, he finally decided to go through with TURP surgery. And to his surprise, along with many who might be watching, his sex life didn't end. In fact, he not only regained control over his bladder, but he also kept his erectile function intact. So why live in fear? Why let a paralyzing myth stop you from living a better life? The truth behind the myth. Prostate surgery doesn't mean impotence. It means treatment, relief, and a chance to live without pain, without discomfort. Yes, there can be some side effects, like retrograde ejaculation, but that's something many men would gladly face compared to the agony of BPH. If you know someone living in fear, share this video. Let's spread the truth and help other Pedros out there make the right choice and free themselves from the fears that hold them back. If this content helped you or could help someone you know, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share this information. Together, we can fight misinformation and help more people live without